Is here. Today we are going to discuss the second group of muscle, which I told we have two group of muscle in the head muscle. First we already discussed facial muscle. The second group we have masticatory muscle, and this masticatory muscle which help in mastication when we eating or chewing something food. They are grinding this food by mechanical process. Okay, this muscle help in grinding the food. Okay, in mastication we have four muscle. In the masticatory muscle, first we have temporal muscle. It means four muscle we have masticatory muscle. Temporal muscle, temporal muscle. Second we have this is temporal muscle. This is the mesenteric muscle. Mesenteric muscle. Third we have lateral pterygoid muscle, and fourth we have middle pterygoid muscle. Now I will tell you where is location of the lateral pterygoid muscle and middle pterygoid muscle, because here I mentioned in the laterally we have a temporal muscle. Okay, where we have temporal fossa, and here we have mesenteric muscle. But location of the lateral pterygoid muscle and middle pterygoid muscle, when we will discuss this origination and insertion of this muscle, then I will show how where is location of this muscle. But you just memorize this. If you remember when we discussing this the pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone, there we if you remember, okay, lateral plate of pterygoid process and middle plate of pterygoid process. If you remember from these two words, okay, here is location, just if you remember the bone. Okay, now first our bone we going to discuss is temporal muscle. Temporal muscle we will going to discuss the origin and insertion. This is a temporal muscle. Okay, this is a temporal muscle. If you remember, this is the temporal fossa. When we discuss the topography of the facial skull, we have three fossa. Here we have temporal fossa, here we have infratemporal fossa, and here we have pterygopalatine fossa. Okay, but we discussing the temporal muscle, and temporal muscle is location where is a temporal fossa. And from here, if we will talk about the origin and insertion of this muscle, this is the origination from here. And here we have which line? When we discuss the parietal bone, we have two lines, superior line and inferior temporal line, and his origination from the inferior temporal line of what? Parietal bone. The second origination from where is location which I told is temporal fossa. It means the second origination we have temporal fossa. And temporal fossa, you know which is temporal fossa, we discuss. Okay, the little we will see here we have temporal fossa. Okay, now insertion. These all muscular part, this coming into the fiber in tendinous form. Then we have two fiber, anterior fiber like the white hair shed anterior fiber and posterior fibers. Okay, and this fiber going to insert it into the which process, and this process is the process of mandible bone. And this process mandible bone, if you remember, we have two processes in the mandible bone. Okay, we have the coronoid process and pterygoid process of the mandible bone. Okay, it means insertion of the temporal fossa is a coronoid process of the mandible bone. Okay, simply again, temporal muscle location in temporal fossa. Okay, originated from the parietal bone, inferior temporal line and temporal fossa, and inserted going to the these fibers going to the anterior and posterior fiber going where the coronoid process of the mandible bone. Okay, these are the original insertion of this muscle. Okay, then you have function of this muscle. these muscles, the anterior and posterior, when the anterior contracted, okay, they are elevate the mandible. When the posterior fiber contract, they are retract the mandible. It means elevates, elevation and retraction of the mandible bone when they are contracted, this muscle fibers. Okay, these are the one muscle of the masticated muscle, temporal muscle, okay, which are help in function, elevation and retraction of the mandible bone. And if the retraction and elevation of this muscle bone, they are also helping in chewing. Okay, and origin and insertion we talked about, inferior temporal line of the parietal bone and temporal fossa, and insertion coronary process of the mandible bone. Again, I am repeating you, if you remember the osteology, the bones, parts and formation, is very easy for you to understanding origin and insertion. Okay, but the one thing more important when we discussing here the mastication muscle, there's muscle we sometimes we have like bellies, you know, some muscle in the skeletal muscle we have bellies. Okay, sometimes interior belly, posterior belly, sometimes we have superior and inferior belly, and sometimes we have head. Okay, lateral head, middle head, okay, short head and long head. Okay, now the second muscle we have in the mastication muscle, we have mesenteric muscle. Mesenteric muscle, mesenteric muscle, origin and insertion. If we talk about the origin and insertion, okay, these are the, you know, this is zygomatic arch. If zygomatic arch in which bone? This is zygomatic process of the temporal bone, and this is zygomatic process of the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. This is zygomatic bone which I do. If you remember, we have two processes: is a frontal process connection with the frontal bone, and this is a temporal process which connection with the zygomatic process of the temporal bone. Okay, now this is a mesenteric muscle which origination we have also two bellies here, origination. Okay, if you see the origination here, one anterior fiber originated from where? From the anterior zygomatic arch, and posterior, this one posterior is a posterior fiber originate from the posterior, like this is a zygomatic bone, simply zygomatic arch. And they also have interior front side and back side. Its front side is anterior zygomatic arch and back side is means posterior of a zygomatic arch. It means anterior belly originate from the anterior of zygomatic arch, and posterior originate from the posterior arc of zygomatic arch. Okay, now I will write here, means origination from the zygomatic arc, zygomatic arch or arc. Okay, then we have anterior and posterior fiber, and these fibers of this muscle originate from the anterior and posterior zygomatic arch. Okay, now insert, if you will talk about the insertion of this muscle coming and inserting into the mesenteric tuberosity of the mandible, because this is the mandible bone. Okay, this muscle are inserted into the mesenteric tuberosity, because when we discussing the ramus of the mandible bone, we have two tuberosity, one in the external we have mesenteric tuberosity and internal we have pterygoid tuberosity. Okay, it means insertion as the mesenteric tuberosity of what? Of mandible bone. Okay, and also if we will talk about the function, they also retract of the mandible bone. Okay, these are the origin and insertion of the second muscle, mesenteric muscle of the masticatory muscle of the head. Okay, now third muscle we have medial pterygoid muscle, and medial pterygoid muscle I told in the starting when we will going, then I will show how they are, because here we have two fiber, we have superior location, and then second we have posterior deep location. Okay, if this I will draw, this is the mandible bone. Okay, from internal view, this is the mandible bone from internal view. Okay, This is the maxilla, okay, maxilla, this is the front, this is the maxilla, okay, and this is the mandible bone. Now we talk about the middle pterygoid muscle. I will write here middle pterygoid muscle, musculus pterygoidus medialis, okay. Now this is the mandible bone, this is the maxilla bone, okay. We have two parts, superior part and inferior part. Superior part and deep part. Means superior part here, superior part origination from where? Superior part and deep part. Means superior part, origin and origin, because insertion is in the same, because these are fiber. I told already. Here we have to sometimes in muscle we have fibers, anterior, posterior, and superior. So okay, and inferior, and sometimes we have heads. Okay, but here we have five, superior one part and deep part fibers. Now superior one. If you remember when we discussing the borders, the interior borders of the pterygopalatine fossa, there we have facing the maxillary tuberosity. Means superior part origination from the maxillary tuberosity or maxillary tuberosity. Okay. If you will talk about the inferior deep part, then deep part origin from the here the back. If you remember the deep part which I told about, if you remember here, the when we discussing the pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone, okay, there we have between lateral plate and middle plate. This is a lateral plate and this is a middle plate, and between them we have fossa, pterygoid fossa. It means the deep part originated from the pterygoid fossa of the pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone. Okay, these are the two parts we just talking about origination. Okay, this is the maxilla which I draw, this is the mandible bone. Here we have two parts, superior part and inferior part. Okay, deep part, superior part origination from the maxillary tuberosity, and deep part origination from the pterygoid fossa of the pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone. Okay, and these are coming here, these two fibers they are together and coming to inserted into the pterygoid tuberosity of the mandible bone. If you remember when I talk about here, there we have two tuberosity, external we have mesenteric tuberosity and internal we have pterygoid tuberosity. Okay, now I will write this. If I will talk about these two parts, two fibers insertion, it means these are inserted here to the pterygoid tuberosity of what? Pterygoid tuberosity of the mandible bone. Okay, now if we will talk about the function of this muscle, middle pterygoid muscle help the mandible to the contract unilateral direction and bilateral direction. Okay, because they have two fiber, and this fiber helping to the unilateral, sometime forward and backward. Okay, when you are chewing the food. Okay, next the last muscle of the masticatory muscle which we have, lateral pterygoid muscle. And lateral pterygoid muscle where it is located, if you will remove the if you see the from lateral view, this is the mandible, and here we have pterygoid process of the if you remember, pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone. Okay, and here we have temporal fossa, then we have infratemporal fossa. Okay, and here have pterygopalatine fossa. So if I will draw here, then you will correct. This means this is temporal fossa, then we have infratemporal fossa, and this is pterygopalatine fossa. Okay, now if we also have two parts. One first we have superior part and inferior part. Interrogate how lateral pterygoid muscle, superior part, superior. Okay, superior part and no. If you have superior head, because here we have head, superior head and inferior head. And then after that we will going to discuss the insertion, because insertion in only one place. Okay, we will talk about origination. First, here there are superior head which originated from the temporal infratemporal fossa, and there we have also which greater wing of the sphenoid bone, greater wing of sphenoid bone, okay. Now inferior head, if you remember the two plate which we discussed in the pterygoid process, there we have two plate, lateral plate and middle plate. It means that lateral, this is a muscle also have lateral pterygoid muscle, and his inferior head also originated from the lateral lamina or lateral plate of a pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone. Okay, this all information we take from the bones, okay, because this formation we already discussed in the bones. Okay, it means lateral pterygoid process muscle. I tell where is the location. Okay, here two head, superior head and inferior head. They are looking like this. When you have superior head and then we have inferior head. Okay, superior head, which I told, if infratemporal fossa. Okay, and then we have their location of the greater wing of sphenoid bone. Then we have inferior head, which originated from the lateral lamina of the pterygoid process of sphenoid bone, and these are inserted here into the same place. If you look from the internal view of the mandible bone, if you remember here, this is the coronoid and pterygoid process of the mandible bone. If you remember here, we have one fossa, it means pterygoid fovea or pterygoid fossa of the mandible bone, and these are lateral pterygoid muscle are inserted into the pterygoid fossa of mandible bone, and this muscle also function, the same function, means they are helping in the unilateral and bilateral direction, means they are helping in the forward of the mandibula. Okay, and this also the fourth muscle which help in the mastication. Okay, and that's why they are called mastication muscle. And when we discuss the facial muscle, they are why is called facial muscle, because they are the help in facial expression, and this muscle, mastication muscles, called mastication because they help in mastication. Okay, these are the two group of muscle of the head which we discuss. Okay, facial muscle group and mastication muscle group. Okay, this is our topic about the mastication muscle. Thank you for